How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Alex, with my co-host here beside me, Anthony Rivardo. If you're new to the channel, make sure to go below on YouTube, like and subscribe. As always, got some really good content coming out in the coming days with free agency kind of getting underway here. The Giants have made a couple signings, talked about those guys yesterday, but today I want to talk about a specific running back out of Georgia, James Cook. This is a really intriguing player. According to Art Stapleton, Giants beat reporter, he said that the Giants are really intrigued by James Cook, and they went to Georgia's pro day to check him out today. He even was, kind of taking reps as a receiver. You'll see in the film, really interesting player. He's kind of the scat back. He's smaller, 5'11", 199 pounds. He's not a bruiser, but he's a good receiver. You can put him in motion. You can split him out wide. You can do a lot of things with him in the screen game. And he's really shifty and nifty. In between the tackles. He does a lot of really good, weaving and wobbling and trying to avoid tacklers. I like that about him. He's not a guy that's going to grind out extra yards and carry guys on his back like a Devontae Booker would last season, but I do think that he has a really good application in the NFL if teams use him to his strengths. And it seems like the Giants are kind of looking to build a scheme around their players and not, force the players into a scheme like they did with Jason Garrett. I think that him and Kadarius Toney together would be an absolute nightmare for opposing defenses, and I do want to talk about that as we look at the film. But Anthony, before we dive into James Cook, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing great. Really enjoying taking a look at James Cook, Dalvin Cook's brother. Of course, Dalvin Cook, we all know him, one of the best running backs in the NFL playing for the Vikings. But James Cook is a really intriguing name, especially to hear so early on in the draft process that the New York Giants, who already have Saquon Barkley on their roster, are interested in a running back like James Cook. I think that's really intriguing to me. James Cook is not first round or second round prospect or anything, but he's a middle round guy that could potentially be a great complement to Saquon Barkley or a compliment to somebody else who has a completely different rushing style from James Cook, because in a way, Saquon Barkley has been looked at over the past couple of years as more of a scat back, and James Cook definitely is a scat back. So I'm not sure if those two really pair up nicely, but let's see what happens with Saquon Barkley. Of course, the Giants are maybe going to trade James Bradbury. Saquon Barkley's name has been brought up in some trade conversations and rumors, so we'll see what happens with the Giants, but I really like James Cook. If they're able to snag him in the middle rounds, I think he'd be a great addition to Brian Daboll's offense.
Yeah, look, when it comes to if you're going to draft James Cook in the third round, fourth round, wherever he is, and you feel that's a healthy place to get him, I'm not taking him predicated on the fact that, he's not going to compliment Saquon Barkley. Like you said, Saquon Barkley will likely be gone next season. I don't see how they can afford to spend big money on Saquon Barkley. I mean, look what Ezekiel Elliott's contract is doing to the Dallas Cowboys right now. They're really bleeding. Money. Had to trade Amari Cooper. They let, a couple got Randy Gregory deciding, screw that, I'm going to the Broncos. So a couple guys, Connor Williams gone. They've had to make some tough decisions because of that contract, paying running backs big money, especially a guy like Saquon Barkley who's missed almost like 2 full seasons worth of play, is really hard to justify. If he has an absolutely monster year this year, might be trying to flip him at the deadline. And get some draft capital for a team that might be needing a running back. Maybe some team that has a Super Bowl aspirations lost a running back right then. It always happens. The Giants say, hey, we got Saquon Barkley, he's kicking ass. And then they're like, oh, we need him to really complete the rest of the season. And you're looking at maybe get a fourth, maybe third round pick out of it for the next upcoming year. And I think that's where the value will stand for the Giants and Saquon. But that, James Cook, totally different player in terms of his play style, his frame. He doesn't have that strength that Saquon Barkley does when he is running downhill, capable of breaking tackles. James Cook is really shifty. He's really agile, and he has great vision when he's hitting the hole. So we'll jump into the film here. You can get a good idea of what I'm talking about, but he's a really cool player, a mid-round prospect that would serve a specific purpose, right? He's not a guy that you're going to be day one starter that's going to be able to bulldoze guys over and be that receiver and be that nifty, agile running back. Like he really is the scat back that the Giants would really actually probably love to have in this system that Brian Daboll likes to run. But let's take a look here. And looking at the Chiefs, by the way, just before we dive into it, like with Damian Williams, they got that young Gore kid. And, some of those receiving backs and those kind of like smaller guys, super valuable. And they've done a great job maximizing those talents in the mid to late rounds, those running backs. So I think there is value in guys like this, which is why I want to take a look at him. But let's jump right into the film here with James Cook. So right off the bat, let's take a look at him. He's really nifty. I like right off the bat here that he sees the gap opening up inside, and he's not afraid to jump back inside, right? You can see this defender peeking over the shoulder, and he's really patient. Something I really like about his running style. He's very patient at the line of scrimmage. His vision is great. He is able to decipher where the defense is trying to make him go. And he's really he really shrinks. You can see his body. He's 5'11", so he's not like the shortest guy on the field. But when you see him get into the gaps, his entire frame shrinks, and it's really hard to find out where he is if you're a defender. So you see him; he's really good at bending his body and just getting around those tackles. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, I really appreciate his short area quickness here, the way that he's able to burst. It's kind of patient running style here. He's waiting for the gap to open up. But as soon as he sees that hole, he's just able to jump cut real quick and then burst upfield. And I think that's really valuable, especially when you're talking about a complementary piece at the running back position. To have good vision like that and then able to combine that with his burst to get upfield is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at the next clip here. I think it's a big run. Yeah, so they use him a lot out of shotgun. Something you'll notice they don't really use in the I formation very much with a guy like James Cook. He's a lot of the time you're going to see him out of the shotgun, and the reason is he's really good at going in motion out of the shotgun. You'll see him swing out on screen passes. You'll see him split out wide. You'll see him move to the slot. They really love to use him in that way, and from the shotgun spot, that's the best way to use motion for a running back. You're really not going to use that motion if you're in the I. It's not as easy. And I think for this specifically, you'll see in the next couple of plays here, he does a great job, and it really keeps defenses honest, right? If you're in the shotgun, maybe he goes in motion, maybe he goes maybe he goes into a screen pass, or he does a little Texas route. In the play action game opens up entirely with a running back who's really good receiver too. Saquon Barkley last year dropped a couple of passes that he should have had. He has been inconsistent with his hands ever since that awesome rookie season he had. But when you're looking at James Cook here, let's take a look at him run. He's so shifty. He reminds me of Dalvin Cook the way that he runs, but he's not as strong. Really nice here. Follows his blockers. I mean, look at that. There's like you said, Anthony, the short area quickness he has is tremendous, right? Once he
Yeah.
gets through that line, bam, look right here. Look at the direction change. Bam, on a dime, gone.
And the balance that he has there too. He kind of looks like he's about to fall flat on his face, but he's able to get his legs out in front of him. It's really incredible balance here. And like we mentioned, the short area quickness, kind of tripping over his own 2 feet in a way. Not really. He's got like an arm tackle that he runs through, and he's just able to stay on his feet and then start cutting one way as soon as he starts falling the other. So I think this is really nice. Like we said, contact balance and short area quickness from James Cook.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look here. So now this is where the motion comes into play. Georgia used him really well. And honestly, I wish the Giants used Kadarius Toney like this last year. Hopefully they kind of use Kadarius Toney just like Georgia uses James Cook. You can see out of the shotgun, they swing him out to the right for a nice little screen pass. And it's easy, right? It's just, I mean, I think they're kind of using a cornerback blitz here, a defensive back blitz off the edge. But look at all the space that opens up. Clearly pre-snap, they kind of read this. They're like, all right, let's swing him out here. This linebacker is kind of dropping into zone coverage, and look at all the space, 2 blockers in front. He gets tripped up off the edge here, but this is how you want to use a player like James Cook. Great hands. He's shifty and nifty. And I really like how Georgia uses him as a receiver, and they really get him into space so he can make plays. And I think that's, if you're an offensive coordinator, if you're Mike Kafka, if you're Brian Dable, and you have James Cook, this is how you're using him.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I'll throw out there is a statistic from PFF about James Cook. He's a very natural receiver, they said. 1 drop on 68 career catchable passes. So he's a player that you definitely want to get involved in the receiving game. He really is a perfect scat back. You don't want to make him a pass protector or anything like that. That's not going to be the way that he's used in the NFL. He's going to be used motion out of the backfield, screen passes, stuff just like this, where he's able to catch the ball, turn upfield, use that short area quickness, and go.
Right. And like you said, that was the point that I want to harp on is he's not a good pass protector. He's too small. He's going to get bodied in pass protection. So for a player like James Cook, your offensive line needs to be good. They need to be able to hold up. You can't always need your running back to be blocking in the passing game like the Giants had last year. They were just forced. They always had their tight ends, always had the running backs back there trying to protect the quarterback. Offensive line needs to play well for a player like James Cook to be an instant impact player in the receiving game. But you'll see more clips of him making plays in the receiving game. He's a tremendous guy in that facet at his pro day. thing I mentioned earlier in the video, he actually was working out as a receiver too, which is really, really impressive. And he looked pretty good. So you see him in motion here too. And here they don't even have him at running back. They have him in the slot. This is how I would love the Giants to use Kadarius Toney, pulling him in this kind of jet motion across, getting him involved. You can do a lot of things with him. So it's a nice little screen pass, get him into space, easy 6-7 yards. And the defense just gives it to these guys. You know what I mean? If you have him and Kadarius Toney crossing paths, doing all these things in motion, one after another, you're just constantly moving them around. The hell is the ball going to? And then you have guys like Kenny Galladay on the outside. You have Sterling Shepard hopefully making a comeback. Maybe you're drafting a guy like Sky Moore in the slot. Who knows? Still got Darius Slayton outside in the wide. Saquon Barkley, like hell, we still got him. So, there's a lot of talent on that roster. If you can put it together and really confuse defenses, you can make some things happen. And I think that James Cook and Darius Toney together could be a really interesting pair.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I wouldn't even be shocked to see James Cook maybe transition to slot receiver one day. He's got the frame for it. I'll take a quick comparison in terms of body type to a very prominent wide receiver in the NFL. So you go look at James Cook, 5'11", 199 pounds. Odell Beckham Jr., 5'11", 198 pounds. He's got that body type, which isn't a running back's body type. So you can kind of look at James Cook and say, yeah, he's got all this great receiving ability, all that short area quickness. Maybe long term, he's better suited playing in the slot. And I think that's something that's really interesting that NFL teams have probably had the idea of as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also those dual running back looks, I do like that a lot. Him and Saquon Barkley would be very, very, very hard to figure out. You can use the play action. You can hand it off. You just get like you're seeing here. They're swinging out James Cook off the edge here, and it's a nice little screen pass. They love to get him in these screen passes. Just give him into space, and bam, like that's easy 10 yards. It's so hard in the open field. There's not many guys who are going to stop him 1v1, which is what I really like about him. If you can get him into space, he's going to make the first guy miss most of the time, which is what you need. You need guys like that. And I think Kadarius Toney is another guy like that, just pure athletes with good speed, good agility, stuff that you cannot coach. And James Cook, apparently, if the Giants really do love him that much, if he's there in the third round, I could totally see them pulling the trigger. I think there's one more clip here. Yeah, okay, it's just the other angle. To see in that little play action, bam. You have to use him the right way. It's going to be his entire career is going to be based on how well the offense schemes around him and gives him opportunities in the open field. He's not a ground and pound runner. He's not going to be your RB1 running up the gut and making things happen. He's got to be used as a traditional scat back. He can do some things in the running game when you give him the opportunity, but it has to be timed correctly. He's kind of okay. You know what, Anthony? You know what a good comparison to Nyheim Hines. That's a decent comparison for James Cook. A good receiving back, can also run the football well when given the opportunity. I think that's maybe what the Giants could see in a guy like James Cook is kind of a Nyheim Hines kind of guy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison. I'll do you one a little bit better. Jamal Charles used to play for the Kansas City Chiefs. He
Right.
was
That's a good
also
one too.
5'11". He was 5'11", 199 pounds, exact same as James Cook. So that's a pretty good comparison there as well, because Jamal Charles was actually an elite running back at one point during his NFL career, and he had plenty of rushing yards throughout his career, but he always made a significant impact as a receiver, and he was never the kind of guy that's going to be a bruiser, run over you, or anything like that, but he was the kind of guy that's going to be a phenomenal receiver out of the backfield, be really shifty and elusive and hard to catch from behind. So that's what I really like about James Cook as well. That's how I describe Jamal Charles, but I definitely see that comparison, and I really, again, wouldn't be shocked if James Cook is able to make that transition to slot receiver. Of course, the pay there is better, so there might be incentive for him to do so. He was participating in wide receiver drills today at his pro day, and he's one of those players that I think has a lot of versatility in his game. So he could be a great rusher out of the backfield receiver, or maybe one day transition over to the slot position. I think that he's got that ability, and he's got some great hands and definitely has the quick feet to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the same time, if you're the Giants, why not even don't transition, just play both positions. I think that's where the motion comes in handy. You can throw him into the slot, have him in the dual running back set, have him at running back as just the sole guy back there if you want to at times. I think he's a great third down back, in my opinion. You can do a lot with him in motion. You can get really creative with a player like that. If the Giants are trying to modernize their offense, and it seems like they are with Dable and Joe Shane, really coming from cutting edge tech and just advanced offensive schematics, they love the motion. They love to do stuff like this. They love to find creative ways to get guys open and maximize their skill set. James Cook has a very specific set of skills, as Liam Neeson would say. And I think that he's capable of pulling it off and doing a good job in the NFL if he's coached up correctly. And it seems like he's a coachable guy, especially if the Giants are already intrigued by him. So hopefully the Giants can find a way to get him on the roster if they do feel that he is going to be a good player. I do also like Breece Hall. I talked about him a couple weeks ago. So there's a couple of running backs that could be really, really beneficial for the Giants in the mid rounds. But I'm not spending anything higher than a third round pick on a running back right now. Though we have 2 third-round picks, use one of them a running back. I think that's totally fine if it's a guy you think could be an immediate contributor and really a long-term benefit for this team and offense. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Fireside Giants, taking a look at Georgia running back James Cook. Make sure to like and subscribe below as always, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
TVSO.